Joining us right now in the studio, we have host of the Independent Americans podcast and founder and CEO of Independent Veterans of America, Paul Rieckhoff. Paul, good to have you here. So Hegseth in the White House, you heard them, the arguments, right? They continue blaming the media as the Secretary of Defense is the one who's actually doing things that bring into question his judgment and that which really arose in Signalgate. But the fact that they're doing that and just blaming the media, is it likely to influence folks inside the Pentagon? Do they know what's going on? How are they going to look at this malfeasance, if you want to call it that?
I think they know better than anybody because they know there's a standard of effectiveness and professionalism that's almost always upheld by everyone and by the Secretary of Defense most of all. He is Secretary Chaos right now. He is swarmed. He is engulfed. He is overwhelmed with controversy and chaos, and it's of his own making. The Signalgate escapade continues to evolve. Every 6 hours or so, we get a new element of how he's violated operational protocols that could endanger the lives of Americans, and that's ultimately what it's all about. Everybody who works in the building knows that this is not allowed. It's not acceptable. And when he tries to go around it, he jeopardizes lives. And he can throw all the blame he wants on the media or the Democrats. But now he's being attacked by his own former advisors. 3 of them who've now posted an op-ed in the Politico. They're talking to Tucker Carlson. They're coming at him from within. And they're exposing him. And I think going to continue to leak stories of the next couple of days. And it's distracting us from what we need to be focused on. Ukraine, our national security, dealing with NATO. We need a quarterback running into this chaos who's stable. Instead, we've got one that's rattled and shook and injured.
Which means what for the morale there and for the confidence in him? I mean, this is the guy who's going to send people into war, directly into harm's way if need be.
It's absolutely adversely impacting morale. It's also impacting recruiting, retention. Nobody wants to be a part of this chaos where the Pentagon is supposed to be insulated from politics. And instead, with Hegseth, you've got someone who is a political extremist, who's overtly political, who continues to dial up the political attacks and increase the pressure on himself and everyone in the building almost every couple of hours. He makes no attempt to bring the temperature down, and I think that's what people in the building want to see. Keep in mind, he fired the chairman of the Joint Chiefs. He fired multiple senior generals. He fired General Hogue. So it's also bolstered by this lack of stability beneath him, not just at the political level, but in the actual senior military officer ranks. And that's where there's real concern.
Is there wisdom for someone who's leading the Pentagon, given the seriousness of what one has to do in that position, to not admit mistake, not admit frailty? I mean, I'm just trying to throw a bone here.
The opposite. I mean, he should take it head on. He should take responsibility. He should meet the moment. He should show that he has character and integrity and that he will set the standard for our over 1 million people who are in the Department of Defense. He has to be the best example. And right now, he is the worst example. If he was a private in the 82nd Airborne, he'd probably be in handcuffs and standing before a UCMJ group. But instead, he continues to fight in a way that I think is really shameful. I mean, everybody can see the truth here, and he keeps digging in deeper, and he's sinking our Pentagon deeper as a result.
Which begs the question, how long can this continue? How long can it continue not only from action and activity inside the Pentagon, but from the Trump administration to say we stand by him? I mean, be real.
It will continue until Trump decides otherwise. There's only one Republican, I believe, Don Bacon, who I think has been outspoken and brave and courageous in saying that Hegseth should step down, but he's in isolation right now. So ultimately it comes down to Trump. And I do think Trump is holding him on thin ice right now because he's slowing down the Trump agenda. Prior to this, he was making tremendous progress as far as Trump is concerned in moving through his extreme agenda at the Pentagon, purging people, driving this all forward. Hegseth is screwing that all up right now. And if you replaced Hegseth with someone like Tom Cotton or Joni Ernst or someone else that's viewed as more stable and understands the institution, it would put it at least on a pause and allow him to focus on other things. So I think Trump's attention is short, and the leash he's got him on is short, too.
In terms of focus on other things, let's talk about a priority for Secretary Hegseth that did see a bit of movement today, and that's on the DOJ, which asked the Supreme Court allow President Trump to enforce his ban on transgender troops serving openly in the military. What kind of message does it send to have the Secretary of Defense so focused on things like a transgender ban in the military, which, if I remember correctly, affects 0.4% of people who identify as trans or having some issues with their sexuality, 0.4% in the military.
This is what happens when you have an overtly extreme political culture warrior as your Secretary of Defense. This is what so many of us warn people about with regard to Pete Hegseth. He's focused on these things instead of Ukraine, instead of increasing recruiting, instead of reforming our military in ways that are positive. He says that DEI is the enemy instead of Russia. That's the problem here. And the reality is transgender people should be able to openly serve just like everyone else. And not only is it disruptive to the overall environment, you have to actually rip transgendered service members out of their unit and impact the people around them. So it's bad politics, it's bad morality in my view, but it's also very bad for our national defense, and it's another distraction from bigger issues. But it's where Hegseth made his money coming up for the last 2 decades, and it looks like he's only going to double down.
Last question on former NATO Secretary General who's in town today. We have Jen Stoltenberger, was once referred to as the Trump whisperer. I'm sure you recall that. Is it possible to modify, relative to Ukraine, this American plan? How do you see that happening? Because the big issue is the ceding of land, which President Zelensky says that's unconstitutional against the Ukraine Constitution.
The big issue is Trump, and he's changed his tune a little bit in the last 24 hours, which is significant for him. He's still victim-shaming Zelensky. He's still putting pressure on Ukraine instead of on Putin. He's still asking for what I think are ridiculous concessions like giving up Crimea. Right?
He said it was long gone.
Ukraine can't give up Crimea any more than we can give up Alaska or Texas. I mean, it's built into their constitution. There's not a single Ukrainian politician who would support it. So I think we have to, as independent, thoughtful Americans who care about our national security, continue to put pressure on Trump, on Vance, on Rubio, and tell the rest of the world they don't speak for us. They don't speak for most Americans. They don't speak for most veterans. Most Americans support Ukraine and want to see more support and more pressure on Russia. And for Trump and Rubio and the rest of them to change their language, which is really shameful and I think un-American.
Okay. Paul Rieckhoff, it's good to have you here talking about it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Alex.